eyes dare to see all the greatness I possess, endless possibility.
Welcome to Seek ELLAvation with yours truly, Attorney Ellakisha. I am Attorney Ellakisha, the empowerment influencer, ownership attorney, an advocate for creatives, sports professionals, and founders with a dedicated focus on first-gen achievers. Yes, I mentioned that I am an attorney. So before we get into this segment, I want to make it very clear that although I am an attorney, any type of legal information that I may cover, it is not legal advice. Everything is for educational purposes for you to elevate, to become better. And if you do need legal advice based on information that I shared, then I highly encourage you to seek out legal help, legal assistance. But right here, Seek ELLAvation is a space for elevation, transformation, and clarity. Here is where I empower individuals who are rising, redefining themselves, and daring to step into their highest potential. The people who want to become the best versions of themselves and own every step of their journey. So if you are building, creating, leading, or evolving, this is your platform. If you have been following Seek ELLAvation, then you know that this segment, or this podcast, I should say, is on YouTube, and it is on all streaming audio platforms as well. We just wrapped up season 3 with the one-on-one interviews. I interviewed a lot of amazing individuals in the first half of season 3. That has come to an end. Right now, we are wrapping up season 3, and I'm setting us up for what a lot of it will look like for season 4. So right now, I am doing the old school way of audio, but I will still post the video on YouTube so that you can hear. But my main focus is to speak like I'm speaking directly to the old school podcast listeners with these one-on-ones. So today, what I want to cover, and like I said, I'm setting up for season 4. I'm going to go into a lot more of this, especially in season 4. I want to cover cases, situations, not just cases, but like real life situations, to kind of bring home some of the things that I talk about on this podcast, and just let us talk about real scenarios and what are some things that possibly could have been thought about, could have been done, if at all. And you know the saying, unfortunately, sometimes other people experience, or should I say fortunate, maybe not unfortunate, because instead of you experiencing it, you learn from other people's experience. So what I was going to say is that sometimes other people's experiences can help you and you learn from that. So fortunately, that can save you the heartache and pain. So let's talk about some other people experiences, but unfortunately for them it happened, but hopefully they are, learning from it as well and becoming better. I want to talk about someone today that was trending. This is a young basketball player, Sebastian Telfair. He was trending, and I definitely want to talk about his scenario for several reasons. He actually did an interview. He did an interview on Vlad. So if you want to learn more about his story, go there and watch Vlad. I believe this was his second interview. He did an interview a while ago, and then he did a recent interview right before, being arrested and having to do some prison time. But if you want to know or learn about Sebastian, then you can find that interview with Vlad TV, or maybe other interviews he has done as well. So just Google him, Google Sebastian. But I want to talk about him today because he had made obviously headlines as a former high school phenom, and I believe there was a documentary out about Sebastian. There was a documentary out, and he made a lot of headlines. He was a high school phenom, and I mean, garnered a lot of money. He played basketball and was showed just like how, he lived in a penthouse, and all the things that come with what you see with a lot of athletes who may come into a lot of money, who comes from, you know, underserved communities or communities that are not as flourishing. And in his case, why we bringing him up is because we're talking about him going from a penthouse back to living in the projects, and to him serving some time for some decisions that he made. But the same projects that he grew up in, this is one of the things I see when I watch Vlad's interview, which was very ironic. The irony in it was when he came into all of the money that he came into, one of the things he did was spend money building basketball or some type of rec space for the people in those projects. And that's exactly where he ended, right back up in the place where he built for others there. So he ended up back there and playing on those courts. But after making millions in the NBA, so much started to unravel. And these stories, his story is definitely not unfamiliar. We can probably replace his name with a lot of other individuals. A lot of individuals who dream of leaving what I call the hood once they make it, end quote. You got to make it. But what is making it? And that's what I want to talk about. What is making it? Because for a lot of individuals, and it's not just about individuals who may come from the underserved community, the hood, uh, disadvantaged communities, or whatever we want to label them. It's just people who come from being uninformed and not having the information on what making it is. Making it sometime is literally just having a lot more than what you have now. To most people, that's making it. I just need to have a lot more than what I have now. But having a lot more doesn't necessarily mean that you will attain some level of freedom. You just may be at a higher level in survival mode, but not necessarily thriving. If there's not a lot of things put in place, and if we don't recondition the mind to have our mind, see, a lot of times we think about the physical aspect of being poor or broke, and not think about the mental aspect of being poor or broke. And making it is literally breaking through the mental aspect of being poor or broke. Because when that foundation is not secure, the same environment that you fought to escape can become the environment in which you actually return. And so that is the reality that Sebastian is living today. And when I watched his interview, and I believe he was that's his brother that was on there with him. And I'm not sure what capacity his brother worked with him, but his brother was there. And I was just listening to some of the responses coming from Sebastian, of course, but also coming from the brother. And it did make me, and I understand, I know his family. I will assume his family loves him dearly. His close friends, people love him dearly. But just because people that love us doesn't mean that they know the best either. They don't understand business, how things run, how you need to show up. And I was just getting that when I was watching the interview. And I was like, if this interview and how these responses are being given, especially from the gentleman that's with him, I believe it was his brother, if it's any inclination of how things were handled supporting him through his journey, then I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at things that went down. And not to necessarily just blame outside people, but you are a product of your environment and those that are around you. If we're talking about when you get to certain levels and you want to continue to elevate to the next level and the next level, you can put in all the work. You put in all the work to make that happen physically, and then you put in all the work that you need to make that happen within you. But when you do all of that, if you don't have the right energy and the right people around you, that still is a stagnation. That can be a constant tug of war. So there's so many components in elevating. It's literally doing the work, and that's the outside work, the planning, the preparation, the things that you need to do, doing the inside work in order for that to be in alignment to execute and take action on those things that you worked so hard on and prepared for, but also putting yourself in that environment for it to flourish. You become the condition, but you need to make sure that soil, that environment that you're on is the condition for you to actually grow. And so when he talked about, there's a lot of different things that he talked about, but he got locked up back in 2017. He had an unlicensed firearm. He talks about this and all the different stuff. And that arrest had led to 3.5 year sentence that was later overturned in 2023. But, financial damage was already done. Legal battles. He was dealing with divorce proceedings. He talks about that as well. And just years of financial mismanagement. And we keep hearing this. And the question I want to present to you all that's listening, especially if you are a professional in sports in any capacity, if you are a creative, if you are a founder, at what point do we need to hear the same stories over and over again when it comes to financial mismanagement and being drained and all that stuff? How much do we need to hear it? I think a lot of times we say to ourselves, that was them and it won't be me. But we follow down the same path, the same footsteps, and it still end up being you. So at what point do we look at this and say, okay, I see this, and if I follow that path, it can be me. So let me do different. And if you don't know what different is, the next question is, who do I put around me to make that difference? I did a podcast earlier as a guest on someone else's podcast, and that was one of the things that I brought up. We talked about, how do you scale? How do you elevate in your business? Like what are some things that you do? What are some tidbits that you can leave individuals? And the one thing that I shared that I learned for myself is stop focusing on the how and focus on the who, right? We always talk about how something needs to be done. Yes, we can focus on that. We get that done. But at some point, or even simultaneously, we need to focus on the who. Who does it take for me to get this done? All the hows you put together, who does it take for me to get this done? Who understands my vision? Who can I collaborate with? Who can inform me in the manner that I need to be informed in order for me to achieve what I want to achieve? The who's is what makes a difference. So surrounding yourself, that goes back to what I was saying, surrounding yourself around individuals is important. Your environment is important. So when it led to his arrest, what did the environment look like then? Divorce proceedings, a lot going on, obviously, personal things going on. This mismanagement, did anybody around him have any type of financial literacy, understanding of money and how it works? I mean, it drained him, and it should have been, if you have the right people around you, it should be long-term wealth, really. But like he said in his interview, he said, now I got to run around broke. I mean, you go from having millions and millions and millions, and people chase millions. It's not the millions that make you rich. You will be a lot better off, but to be wealthy, abundant, it's what to know to do with that millions. And again, it's people that's around you after you position yourself to be the person that you need to be. But yeah, you look at this young man who was considered Mr. Basketball USA. He was the number 2 point guard in the nation. He was drafted 13th overall by the Portland Trail Blazers. You know, he had a decade-long NBA career. And then he went on to play for multiple teams. Then he played overseas in China. I mean, he had all the opportunities given to him, had every opportunity to secure generational stability. So ask yourself sometime when you say, if I just had an opportunity, if I just had an opportunity, things would be different. Is that true? And do not detach yourself and say, that's that person. That's just how they think. No, we hear this story over and over and over again. That comes from diverse people. If you have the opportunity, do you have the structure? That's the question asked. Yes, if you have opportunity, that's the first step. But without structure, it will always collapse. And structure again is the things that you're doing, the people you have around you, and the systems that you actually put in place. And so all of that he talked about, right, that led all the way up to that time. And then in 2021, this federal case came, another thing. And this federal case was because he was one of several NBA players who was charged with defrauding the league's health and welfare benefit plan. And he had allegedly made some false claims. And obviously, it's not allegedly because he has charged and he's now doing time. And he also pled guilty. He pled guilty in 2023 and he received probation. And now, with him being on probation, when you don't, doing time behind bars is one thing, but being on probation is like doing time while you're out here roaming around free, because the parameters that may be put on someone could be very hard not to actually violate. So having that probation is just one step away from being behind bars again. So he pled guilty, received probation, and that was his case. He did not complete the required community service or meet the probation reporting obligations. And if you listen to his interview, he talks about how challenging that was, how there was things that he was able to do, but he couldn't do those things because it didn't align with his probation requirements. He even talked about having opportunities to make money. Vlad even mentioned in an interview, listen, if you would have contacted me and told me about your situation, I could have brought you in here, hired you, and did whatever. And he said it wasn't that easy. One, they didn't want him to use his prowess as a former NBA player to accomplish his requirements, which was very hard. But according to him. And he said it was just very difficult to accomplish what he needed to accomplish based on a lot of the restrictions. But in August of 2025, he was ordered to serve a 6-month sentence. And you ask, how does this happen? How does this happen is what a lot of people will ask. And again, I'm going to echo this. My answer would be because a lot of times there's no structure, there's no information, there's not the right environment, and it can happen. It's not an isolated story. His story is not an isolated story. And it's not just with athletes. It's a pattern. And this is a pattern I can now say, especially with the fields and the type of clients that I serve, individuals in sports, creatives, small to medium-sized businesses. It's a pattern there, especially amongst first generational achievers in those areas. They're the first ones to navigate a lot. They're the first ones. A lot of time their family is depending on them. So whether you come from an underserved community or not, if you're first generation, you're navigating uncharted territory and trying to figure it out. And when you navigate it, you hit a lot of bumps in the road. So you have a lot of first gen in those areas who rise. They have talent, whether it's talent performing in sports or creatives or talent producing amazing products and services. They enter into contracts. We see the stories over and over again when we talk about founders who have great products or services and lose it all to major companies because they were just excited about what they felt was an opportunity, right? Again, we're talking about opportunity, but they didn't have structure to be able to handle or enter into those opportunities in a sound fashion. They enter into opportunities, take opportunities without legal, financial guidance that's required to sustain their success. And we put a lot of those things on the back burner. So when we talk about Sebastian and anybody else that we would talk about, they don't fall because they lack talent. They fall because they lacked all the things that was there to that are there to protect, elevate, and scale that talent. So if we don't have strategies, if we don't have long-term financial strategies, we don't have the correct business formation. I just had someone reach out to me the other day to get a quote on my legal services to help them form their business. They wasn't sure if they want an LLC or a corporation, but they wanted to form a business, and they just asked, what is the basic fee for forming a company? And my response was, firstly, I don't do basic. I put LOL, laughed, but in all seriousness, I don't do basic. So there's that question's already out. But there's no basic fee. But I was reading more into the question. I understood what that was like. What is the bare minimum fee and bare minimum legal service that I can get to establish this company? And again, that is our issue, is we're always thinking about the bare minimum to get away with something. Bare minimum, there's no foundation, there's no structure. It's not a strong house. We wouldn't build our house with the bare minimum of everything. We wouldn't want our house blown down. We want our infrastructure to be as sound as possible. We shouldn't be asking for basic or bare minimum. Bare minimum is what gets us in trouble. And when we get in trouble, that trouble typically looks like more than bare minimum. It is drowning people. That trouble is trouble. And so I told him I don't do basic. And I want to explain that that's not something I do. Years ago, at least the very first beginning of my legal career, I would do one-offs. I would establish businesses for individuals. They come to me and they just ask for a legal service to establish an LLC, and that's what they want. I would do that. Establish a corporation, a nonprofit, I would do that. If they come and ask for other things and more, I would do that. But I stopped doing that because after almost 10 years in this legal world, and you see these things over and over again, just like you hear these stories over and over again about individuals, me seeing it from the legal side over and over again, what are getting people trapped up? Who's actually getting trapped up? Like, what is it? And a lot of it is because there's no structure. When you form an LLC or a corporation and you don't have all the things in place that comes with that, that should come with that, no matter what state you live in. Some states require you to have certain things in place as you're forming your entity. They will say you're doing an LLC, you need to also submit your operating agreement, you got to submit your members, all the things. Then there's some states that don't require it. Like the state I'm in, Georgia, doesn't require it. It's just you go on there and you can fill out the information, your articles of organization to form your LLC, and you're done. But what a lot of people don't realize, when you especially are in the states that don't require the things that you need to have a legally structured business, all you have is an expensive piece of paperwork. It's expensive piece of paperwork. And some may say, okay, you may, depending on your state, only have to pay $100, $150. It's an expensive piece of paperwork when you use that paperwork to do the things that you're trying to do. When you try to sell products, sell services, it becomes expensive because now you are more at risk. The very reason why you established the entity, which was to protect you, to limit your liability. That's why, one of the main reasons why we establish entities or choose the entities that we choose to establish. However, when you establish these entities and you don't have it legally sound, legal structure, you just have a very expensive piece of paperwork. You do not have a business. And so when you don't have the operating agreement, if it's a LLC, you don't have the bylaws. If it's a corporation, you don't have partnership agreements. You don't have the things that you need to have in place. It's hard to call yourself a CEO. Like, we want these words and we want these tags and we want to be boss, but the way we operate is not in a boss way, not in a CEO way. We're founders. You founded something. You found it, but how do you level that up? And that is doing all the things. The business formation has to be right. You need ongoing legal protection. I know some people will say, well, it's legal is expensive. It's very expensive to lose everything you worked for. It's very expensive to be at risk like Sebastian was and lose everything, because everything is fair game. When you have legal troubles, when you have a divorce you have to go through. I covered a segment on, it was actually one of my short segments. I covered about married couples having companies and moving money around, but not doing the paperwork. And then when something happened, the whole company is put right in the middle. And either one can get it, or everything crumbles, or split in a way that someone's not going to feel is fair. So you need that legal protection. It's expensive not to have it. You just have to figure out, stop saying I can't do something and say I'm going to figure out how it can be done. If I am at the point where I want to do what I'm doing, I have to figure out how that can be done. And there's so many options and ways to figure out. Maybe you need to grow into situations. You start off one way, it helps you. You have some type of either legal information and you DIYing some things with very, very, very adept legal information. And then maybe just hire some attorneys to check on some things for you that you feel you're doing the best you can with your DIY. And then you elevate from there to possibly subscriptions, and then elevate from there to flat fees, packages or services, and then ongoing. But you have to find a way to incorporate that. Don't have compliance systems. A lot of people don't even know what that even means. And a lot of people feel like if I am just the only one that's involved in this, then none of this even matters. I don't need meetings with minutes. I don't need SOPs, standard operating procedures. I don't need compliance. I don't even need an operating agreement because it's just me. No, but it's you in a company. You are not the company. You are separate. You're not one and the same. You have the entity and you have the individual. So, although that thing may be your baby, as most people say, it is not you. And you're literally contracting between yourself and whatever entity that you establish. So, you have to have those things in place. So, not understanding compliance has been a big issue. And all the things that I just brought up pretty much sums up. Yeah, most people don't have an ownership mindset. Most people don't. Ownership mindset really seeks out those things to do what needs to be done. And looking at someone like a Sebastian having an ownership mindset, those people that's around him would have helped in a lot of decisions that he was making, how an owner would move. There should be no reason to have multi-millions and go from prosperity to poor when it comes to the money. Only if you're prospering financially and you're managing that with a poor mind. And so physically what has to manifest is what someone's mindset is. So that prosperity is going to have to eventually dwindle down to the poor set of the mind. And even if he didn't make the best decisions, all that, it still should have been something in place that was protected and structured for him to bounce back to. It still should never have been everything is wiped out, doing jail time. I can't even say when I listen to the interview, at least from his story, his perspective, I can't even sit here and say he's back to where he started. It kind of sounds like he's worse off than when he started. You're worse off. I mean, if you actually look at it, if you even got a taste of a breakthrough and you go backwards, you're already worse than when you didn't get a taste of a breakthrough and you just stayed there. But protection and mindset. This moment is bigger than Sebastian. Just wanted to bring him up and touch on him lightly because he was trending here recently as someone who was absolutely killing it to what his situation is right now. We just focus on becoming breadwinners. We focus on becoming the provider, the hope, the brand. We keep hearing that over and over again. The brand, we throw out words that we hear other people throwing out, the business. But again, we don't focus on the blueprint that needs to be set in place to support that role. So if you are an athlete or any individual, if you are an individual in the sports profession on any side of that table, if you're a creative, a founder, especially if you're first generation, the first in your family to blaze these paths in these particular industries, the first to build a business, the first to make it in a creative industry, the first to make it in the sports industry, especially as you start to see NIL. We'll talk about that some other time with this NIL wave we're looking at from high school to college. Before we even get to pros, you're going to have a lot of first generational sports professionals there, athletes wise. And you have so many agents that are coming about, and then managers, and so many people that are constituents in the NIL space. A lot of them are first gen. So if you're first gen, and you're building something meaningful, let this be a reminder that success without structure is absolutely temporary. Having money without management disappears. And you can have all the talent. And we got to just Google any story. And don't worry, throughout the season, I'm gonna bring up so many. I'm gonna call it out. I'm gonna call it out. Sebastian, I'm just starting here, just warming us up. There's so much and so many to cover from to get deeper into this and not even talk about it as high level as I did with Sebastian, but you can have all the talent. Without protection, your talent becomes liability. Let that sit in. The actual gift that you were given to impact the world can actually become a liability if you're not doing all the things that you need to do. And the reason why I really want to focus on and set this up for season 4 to even go deeper into all of this is because my work as an ownership attorney is dedicated to preventing these exact situations, going deeper into conversations of intellectual property protection. You hear so many people that say, oh, I need to trademark this, I need to trademark that. Well, firstly, if you have some type of logo, sound, or words, or smell, or any of those things that identify you as the source of providing a certain product or service, you already have a trademark. But what you're really trying to say is, I need to federally protect the trademark I do have. But why do you need to do that? That's where the conversations don't continue. They start with, I just need to trademark something. Again, which should be, I need to federally protect this. But what does that even mean? What happens after you do that? Do you know why you're doing that? Oh, I'm doing it to protect so no one else can infringe upon my trademark. That's great. That's just a start, but that's not an ownership mindset. That's basic, as we talked about. People know basic. If you federally protect this, you have better protections on other people infringing upon it. But an ownership mindset goes deeper. This is a federally registered trademark. So now I want to talk about licensing. Now I want to talk about generational wealth with this. Now there's different conversations I can have because of this federal protection. I can have federal prosperity, meaning nationally. And my work also include helping individuals with contract structuring and negotiation. We just be signing things without reading. A lot of times we're like, listen, this is too much to read. I'm going to go to a specific provision I need to go in here. How much money am I making? Oh, okay, thank you. Yep, let's sign. But understanding, negotiating, not just accepting what's put in front of you, and not also just offering someone something up front. Understand what that offering look like. Are you getting the best for your money on either side? How is the contract even structured? I've unfortunately have had to dismantle a lot of contracts, and people were able to get out of a contract because it wasn't even structured correctly. There's this introduction part called the preamble. It's like the introduction of a contract. A lot of times contracts are even incorrect starting with the preamble, the introduction, because when you read it, it should speak to who the parties are of the contract. Sometimes there's the incorrect parties. There's parties listed in there that's not even signing. There's parties who's defined as one thing, but as you read the contract, it's incorrect. In the preamble, it may say X party. This contract is between X and Y party. X is the company. Y is the contractor. Then as you read the contract, now the preamble introduced who's the parties. You read it, all of a sudden you don't even see contractor, you see client. You see other words that have nothing to do with who you introduce. So it becomes contradictory, it becomes confusing. So just understanding contract structure. And again, like I said, business formation and entity structure. It has to be a package. When I get clients now, because I only deal with those who are serious about ownership, I do not do the one-offs. The only thing that I do a la carte without worrying about a flat fee package or any other type of thing is federal protection. To at least get people out there to be federally protected. And then they also get a license agreement and understand the license agreement that comes with that. So that's the only thing. But anything else, if it's about business formation or dealing with anything that is about structure, no, it's not a la carte. We're coming together and we're doing that structure. We're putting the things together. And I do that for a flat fee. We got my clients who can choose 10 things they need. And these are the 10 things I often see over and over again that caused somebody to lose it all. To not be prepared for times that you don't make the best decisions and you may get in trouble. But your money doesn't have to be in trouble. Your money doesn't have to be at risk. 10 things that when you have the environment around you and that environment is not the best environment or the best condition for you, that's still protected and allows you to learn as you grow and then put the right environment around you. But those are the things. I mean, NIL, name, image, and likeness. We talk about that just in sports, but our name, image, and likeness is tied to everything. NIL, we've been dealing with NIL in every area. If you provide any product or service and you're the one that provides it, you're dealing with name, image, and likeness. It's coming from your name, your image, and your likeness. So we just need to be better. And that is my call to action as you listen to this is let us be better in our strategic planning for sustained success, especially with how we feel everything is going on right now. I don't think we should be in a state of fear. We should be in a state of fierceness. The more that we see of what's going on now, this is our wake-up call, our shakedown to say, I'm going to do better. I'm going to show up as my best self in every area. I'm not going to try to do basic. I'm going to do the work it takes to learn more. And I'm going to focus on the who's and not just the how. I'm going to get the how in place. I'm going to put all the who's around me to make sure my how can be executed with structure. So, yeah, so look up Sebastian, look at that story, get more insight on the young phenom who is where he's at, and start looking at more of these stories to remind yourself of anything can happen to me at any time. So I'm going to make sure I do my part to put myself in the best position for it not to happen. And these are not isolated situations with athletes who just don't make the best decision. Creatives just don't make the best decisions. No, this is individuals in any capacity in which you are trying to show up in your talent may not make the best decision, even if that means something not criminal, but you don't make the best decision in that contract you just signed. You don't make the best decision of showing up without federal registration so you can stop working every day of your life, pumping it out, but you can use what you created to work for you. That could be not making the best decision. So, yes, that's what I wanted to cover. So, thank you for tuning in to another segment. I look forward to you being elevated. I know the more you know, the more you will grow. But the more you show care, right? You should share. If you know this segment can help someone to rethink their mindset, to go from one mindset to another mindset, share it. Share it. Share the podcast. Subscribe on YouTube. After you subscribe on YouTube, find your favorite platform to listen to audio podcasts and join there as well. And let us get ready for season 4. But until next time, I want you to continue to be great. And I want you to continue to seek elevation, peace, and progress.